Afternoon, all of Williams College and friends and alumni and students around the country and around the world. My name is Meg Lowman, and I'm really excited to bring you 4 amazing students today who have completed virtual internships to look at rainforests, their canopies, their conservation, and ways that you as a citizen can help save the forests of the world. I want to welcome everybody, especially the class of 76, which is my own classmates, and President Deb Heineman, who helped organize this. Thank you, Deb. I'd like to also give a big shout out to the Williams College community for hosting this webinar, and for the University of Southern California, who gave us one of their interns as well. This program is co-sponsored with Williams and the Tree Foundation. TREE stands for Tree Research, Education, and Exploration, and we are a small organic conservation foundation that focuses on local and global trees. Our president, Elizabeth Moore, also helped sponsor these students over the summer, and we're really, really grateful. Another shout out and thank you to the Environmental Studies Center at Williams and Sarah Gardner, who reached out to me in May and said, could you take one intern for the summer, because we're needing to find experiences for our students. And I said, sure. And lo and behold, she came back to me with 3 students. So we really hit the lottery, and they've all been fantastic and great. To give a bit of context for today's program, we have 4 students who will each talk for about 5 minutes, and then some Q&A afterward. All of you are so welcome to submit to the Q&A. We look forward to trying to answer as many questions as possible. You might be saying, well, why global conservation? Why environmental justice? Why Williams College and Tree Foundation? So I'll tell you a little tiny story that gives you the perspective of how these things came together. As I mentioned, I was the class of 76, long ago and far away. That makes a lot of us pretty old, doesn't it? And I went off and became a student of tropical rainforests, and crazy as it may seem, ended up building the first canopy walkway in Australia as part of my research and part of my opportunity to train students and citizen scientists in studying the canopy, which has 50% of the species on the planet living up there. So it was really important to get up there and study them, especially because rainforests are getting destroyed so quickly. I came back to the US and was a professor at Williams, which was a great opportunity, and built the first canopy walkway in North America out in good old Hopkins Forest, where my students continued this trajectory, discovered new species, found a predator on the gypsy moth, did all sorts of incredible things that got them scholarships to graduate school. And I went from there and built a public canopy walkway down in Florida, and then another canopy walkway in Costa Rica, and then one in Peru, and on and on and on. So over time, these walkways have become kind of a little global necklace of places where people can go and study forest canopies, but always coming back to that hub of Williams College, which was the center of the first walkway. In fact, I even led winter studies back to Australia, and we did continued global biodiversity work at some point in time. So just last year, I took my classmates, many of whom were retired. We celebrated our 65th birthdays on the Amazon, and guess what? We went to a canopy walkway down there, and we talked, and everybody was so amazed that they had no idea how rainforests keep them alive. And so we ended up kind of founding a new program that we're calling Mission Green, which might be to look at canopies around the world and work a little bit with me on these places where we can help local people build walkways and create income. So it's kind of a wonderful way where Williams alums are keeping in touch, and there are all sorts of things that we're now doing to kind of build on what these students today are going to present. So all of these projects represent what the students really wanted to do to help their majors and their career opportunities, and a little bit of what's helping me with my Mission Green program to build these walkways in really high biodiversity forests around the world. So keep your Q&A going, and we'll be looking at that toward the end. But now I'd be really happy to turn this over to our first speaker. Eva Castagna is a junior biology student at Williams College, and she has been researching all the canopy walkways in the world, creating an amazing story map, which she will tell you about, which is through the ArcGIS group down in San Diego, California. And she's going to tell you the state of the art of forest canopies around the world. Over to you.
Hello, thank you, Meg. Yes, as Meg said, my name is Eva Castagna, and I will be an upcoming junior at Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts, majoring in biology with concentrations in neuroscience and Spanish. This summer, I've had the immense privilege of working with the Tree Foundation to research global canopy walkways all around the world and to create a database and an interactive map. I'd first like to thank the Tree Foundation and Dr. Meg Lowman for this wonderful opportunity, as well as Elizabeth Moore, the president, and David and Michael and all of the other amazing, wonderful role models I've had. And though I didn't originally envision myself spending my summer doing a virtual internship, I'm so grateful for the experience and absolutely love being able to connect with park rangers, environmentalists, and canopy lovers all over the world. So what I did for my internship was I created a survey of questions to ask all the major canopy walkways in the world. And with the data I collected from the survey, I created a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet will hopefully be used to help convince park rangers and government officials that canopy walkways can be a fantastic way to bring in sustainable income and conserve the environment. With the data from this spreadsheet, I also created an interactive map which will allow viewers to see all of the canopy walkways all over the world and hopefully inspire them to get outside and see a couple, because in my opinion, going to canopy walkways can be even more fun than going to the mall or something like that. And my favorite part of my internship was I got to talk to park rangers from all over the world, which included some late night phone calls to Australia, but it was definitely worth it. So now I'm going to share my screen and show you some of what I did. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. So this is the spreadsheet that I made with all the data from the canopy walkways using the survey I created. As you can see on the bottom, I've organized them all by location. And the questions I've included are all organized by the name, and they include not only like the email or way to contact and the website and location, but also how much they cost to build and how many visitors each walkway receives annually, and the length and height, and then also if there are any featured species and how each walkway is contributing to the local conservation of the area. And hopefully this walkway can be used, as I said before, to convince officials that canopy walkways are a great way of creating ecotourism and bringing in sustainable income. And like I said, with this data, I created an interactive map, which is right here, and it can be found on the Tree Foundation website. I highly recommend you check it out. And with this map, you can see that there are walkways all over the world. You can zoom in to locations and you can click on one. For example, I'm going to click on the walkway at Halliburton Forest in Canada. And as you can see, a little blurb pops up with data about each walkway and also a photo. So I did this for every walkway on the list. And as you can see, there are quite a lot of points, and you can see the walkways not only in North America, but also in Europe and South America and even Australia. And another feature about this map is you can click on a point or a walkway that you want to see. For example, we'll go with Valley of the Giants, and you can zoom to the location for a closer look at where the walkway is. So this is a really fun feature. I highly recommend you all check it out if you can at the Tree Foundation website. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorite interviews I've done. Another aspect of my internship was that I also collected a lot of photos, so I'll also show you some cool photos. So I had the privilege of talking to Tegan League, who is the general manager of the Halliburton Forest in Canada. And here's a picture she sent me of the walkway with the beautiful fall foliage. And this walkway is actually part of a 4-hour-long guided expedition through the forest, which includes a hike and a canoe ride. And visitors not only get to learn about the forest, but also about the amazing conservations that go on at the Halliburton Forest, including sustainable logging practices, which I really hadn't heard of until this conversation. Tegan was able to share with me a really special moment from the walkway. in which she was sitting on the walkway and the little brown creeper bird landed on her knee. And she said it was just a very peaceful, special moment in nature. So I also had a really great time learning about what the people I was interviewing, what their favorite part of the walkway was. Another interview I conducted was with Ryan Smith, who is the general manager of the Valley of the Giants Treetop Walk in Australia. And as you can see, here are a lot of pictures of the walkway. It really is a beautiful walkway. I'd love to visit someday if I can. And in talking to Ryan, I learned all about the importance of canopy walkways in the conservation of nature. And this walkway is really important because its location sits in one of 2 locations in the world where tingle trees can be found. And here's a picture of the tingle trees right here. Tingle trees are really, really large, but have really shallow root systems. And in the 1900s and over the years, because of their height, it would gather an immense popularity, and as many as 200,000 people would come to see them in the 50s and 60s. And they'd actually drive their cars right up to the trees, and in some trees, there were kind of like hollow trunks so the cars could drive right through the trees. And unfortunately, because of the shallow root system, this just completely destroyed the forest. And in 1990, the biggest tree fell over, and that was when it was decided that something had to be done to protect these trees. So a walkway was built, and this allowed visitors to still be immersed in nature and see the trees, but protected the root systems and protected the tingle tree population. And Ryan Smith actually was able to share with me a really special moment from the walkway as well, in which Gary Muir, who was the project manager at the time, had everyone working on the walkway come camp overnight in the forest with him for a week before they could start working. And this included high-end business executives in suits and designers and architects, and everyone had to go camp in the walkway to learn all about the forest and the history. I just thought this was really unique and an incredible way to teach people about the walkway. So, like I said before, you can find my work in the interactive map located at the Tree Foundation website. And again, thank you so much for the Tree Foundation for this wonderful experience. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Eva. How cool is that? Now we can all go visit canopy walkways for the rest of our retirement, class of 76. Eva's work will help the Tree Foundation discover all the voids in the globe. We've discovered that there are no walkways in India, for example, that Bhutan needs a walkway, and so does Madagascar, some of these places with the highest, most threatened biodiversity. So she's really given us a context for our work over the next decade. Next, we're going to turn to Mary Moore, an amazing chemistry and environmental studies major from University of Southern California, who's been working on one of my favorite subjects called holy leaves. That's what I say. It's not religious. It's H-O-L-E-Y. She's been looking at some of the herbivory data that was collected by Williams College students back in the day when I led winter studies, and by other citizen scientists throughout the rainforests of Australia. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mary Moore. I am a biochemistry and environmental studies student at USC, and I'm going to talk a little bit about herbivory. So I'll share my screen with you all. So my project is focused around herbivory and the analysis of insect herbivory data collected in Australian rainforest canopies. And I'll start by discussing a bit about what rainforest canopies are, what herbivory is, and why any of that matters. And then I'll get into some details about this project and the findings we have thus far. So a rainforest canopy is the top layer of a forest or wooded system. And due to the sunlight availability and moisture and diverse food sources and shelters, rainforest canopies are extremely biodiverse. And biodiversity is a hugely important factor in the health of our planet. So therefore, the preservation of rainforest canopies is a concern of really big importance. Here you can see a little diagram I made to illustrate the strata of a rainforest. Here's our biodiverse forest here. And as you can see, the understory is defined as the most shady area directly above the forest floor. And depending on the forest, it can range from about 1 to 5 meters in height. Directly above the understory is the mid-canopy, and that begins where the foliage begins, and it includes everything up to the upper sunny canopy. So the true upper canopy then includes these tall emergent trees, and that's where the sun shines over all the leaves, and consequently this area is the most photosynthetically productive. So today, most people don't even realize that there are rainforests in Australia. And unfortunately, the general opinion in the 1970s and 80s was that the only good rainforests in Australia are the ones that were cut down. So as a result, over 95% of Australia's rainforests were destroyed, and the remaining 5% are protected today in national parks. There are a variety of different methods that people have developed over the years to access rainforest canopies, and I'll just kind of mention a few of the big ones here. So in the late 1800s, the really only method to see the canopies was with the use of binoculars and telescopes, until around the 1970s when doctors Meg Lowman and Don Perry simultaneously helped develop single rope techniques. So canopy walkways were later developed by Dr. Lowman, which allowed for safe group access to canopies. And all of this helped develop science, as many scientists could go up to a canopy walkway at once. And it also allowed for lots of ecotourism, as Eva just mentioned. So many of these common walkways are used around the world today. So as I mentioned earlier, this project is focused around herbivory, and herbivory is the consumption of plant material by animals and insects. It can have a wide variety of effects on forests. However, in moderation, it can aid in nutrient cycling and is controlled by factors such as changing seasons and plant defense mechanisms. So here are some photos to show herbivory. This is a Christmas beetle, and this is a partially eaten eucalyptus leaf. So the data of this project was collected by citizen scientists with rope techniques and canopy walkways in Australian rainforests in the 1980s. While the majority of published herbivory data analyses include just a few tree species in a few areas, this data has over 109 tree species from 9 different locations. And the average percent herbivory per tree ranged from less than 1% to over 32%. So here are the few of the major trends noted from the data, but these can be fairly complex because we have a whole bunch of different heights and leaf samples and different species that we're comparing to figure out where herbivory is the highest versus the lowest and how it differs along geographic regions and between species. So I'll just spend a little bit of time discussing them. Here are some charts comparing herbivory in the sun versus the shade. And as you can see, it's much greater in shady leaves. And then these graphs here are comparing different heights of the leaves and how herbivory is impacted there. And in general, herbivores prefer the upper sides of the canopy. However, the very top of the canopy is not preferred for a variety of reasons, such as increased sun exposure and increased leaf defenses in those areas. So I also created an interactive map, and I embedded it into this story to map out the approximate sites of data collection for this study. And I'm still working on properly embedding the map into this storyline, so I included some snapshots here of how it'll look. But basically each icon of a tree represents one point of data collection. And if you zoom in and click on one, it'll come up with information about the species of tree that was there, the common name, the recorded percent herbivory, some other facts about the area and the tree. So this map, as well as this entire presentation, will be available for public access through the tree's website. And then I also plan to use this map to explore the geographical and time-related trends in herbivory. So I'd like to thank the Tree Foundation for their incredible opportunity to intern with them and to learn so much about the importance of our rainforests and the major problems and the need for forest education and outreach and everything. A special thanks to Dr. Meg Lowman for her support of this project and for sharing her vast knowledge and experience with me. And thank you, Mom, for introducing me to this opportunity and supporting me along the way. I'd also like to thank USC for providing me with a foundation of scientific knowledge and for further encouraging my love for the environment and our Earth. So thank you for listening. I'll pass this over to Lilia now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mary. And Mary doesn't know it, but what she's seeing when she looks at those holes in leaves is the work of millions of insects. Of that 50% global biodiversity, probably over half is insects. So maybe you're going to have to work with me for about 25 more years, Mary, if you really want to get to the bottom of it. So exciting to move on to Lilia Robinowitz, who is a junior art and environmental studies major at Williams College. She's been doing some wonderful things. First of all, looking at sloths, because we know they're such an iconic animal, and so many school kids always ask me to talk to their classes about sloths. So Lilia helped us with a beautiful graphic for sloths that we're going to use in our Amazon and maybe some Central American walkways where sloths live. And she went on to do some brochures of 2 of our iconic canopy walkways. So I will let her tell you about these wonderful works that she has finished.
Hi, my name is Lilia Robinowitz, and I'm a rising junior at Williams College. I'm double majoring in environmental studies and art history and studio art. And this summer, I've had the pleasure of working as an intern at the Tree Foundation under my supervisor, Dr. Meg Lowman. I'd first like to say thank you to Dr. Lowman and the Tree Foundation as a whole for their help and support throughout this process throughout the whole summer, and to the President, Elizabeth Moore, for her support. This summer, I chose to focus primarily on creating educational resources that are easily digestible and accessible to the general public to increase awareness about rainforests and engage and excite new audiences that may become future environmental stewards. So after many Zoom calls and sifting through various online databases, I've created a sloth research page on the Tree Foundation's website and 2 brochures for 2 canopy walkways that are part of the Tree Foundation's Mission Green, the Myakka State Park canopy walkway, and a canopy walkway in the Amazonian Peru. So I'm going to share my screen and show the sloth webpage. So this is a sloth webpage I created. I basically compiled a bunch of research on sloths, and then I decided to create 13 questions, which I then proceeded to answer. I thought that this question and answer format was a slightly more interactive way to present the information rather than having just a big chunk of text. So I thought that this might engage and excite possibly younger audiences and get them excited about sloths. In the process, I learned a lot about sloths. And some of my favorite facts are that sloths are really great swimmers, as you can see here. While their long limbs are pretty clumsy on the ground, it helps them propel themselves through the water. Another cool fact I found is that sloths just have a really unique body design. So there are lots of different components to this. But one thing that's cool is that they spend 90% of their lives hanging upside down. So their organs are attached to their rib cages. And then I also got to do all the 3 illustrations for this webpage, which was really exciting because I got to combine my love for art with this project. So that was pretty fun. And so this can be accessed on the Tree Foundation's website. Next, I created a brochure for the Myakka State Park canopy walkway. So here that is. And this was a really fun task for me because I got to learn how to use Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop to create this brochure. So it's kind of laid out so the right-hand side is the front, and then the middle is the back, and the left-hand side is the flap that folds in. And I also got to do another drawing of the weevil that was discovered at the walkway months after the walkway was opened. And this was really fun because although I didn't have the chance to actually visit the walkway this summer, I hope to do so in the future. And I learned a lot about the local environment and the sable oak hammocks that are located at Myakka State Park. And I also, like Mary talked about before, researched some forest canopy access methods, and I saw how those have really improved over the past few decades, and I'm excited to see where canopy research will go in the future, and hopefully I can take part in that. And then lastly, I created the second brochure. So here it is. This is for the Peruvian Amazon walkway. This was really fun because I got to learn a lot about the Amazon specifically, but also rainforests more generally. So on the left-hand side is some of my research about the environment of rainforests in general, how they contribute to the global gas exchange and the water cycle. And then on the right-hand side, I focus primarily on how humans interface with rainforests and how we impact the rainforest environment and how this has led to the destruction of so many rainforests, about half of the world's rainforests so far. And so it's really cool to be able to focus specifically on the Amazon, it being the largest tropical rainforest. And I'm excited to hopefully visit that one day. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Lilia. Fantastic. We are so lucky to get an art and environmental studies major. Her drawings are fantastic, and we will be applying for some grants to print those brochures. It's our hope that every student which visits those walkways might be able to be given one of Lilia's brochures because they're so beautiful and they're also so educational. We will have them online for everybody to enjoy, but sometimes there's nothing like having something with you when you travel to all of these fantastic places. So last but not least, I'm excited to introduce Evan Wright, who is a senior environmental studies major at Williams College. He is very interested in advocacy of the environment for his career. So he and I talked at length and decided that what a great project might be could be to look at and research what are those important things that citizens can do to help save the rainforest. People so often ask that question, and we will be really thrilled to have Evan's results up on the website as well. So over to you, Evan.
Well, thank you, Meg. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Talking a little bit about what I've done this summer, and I'll share a little bit about a few things you can do to help conserve the rainforest. So I'm the Rainforest Conservation Advocacy Intern for the Tree Foundation, also Williams College class of 21. And I did several projects this summer. The first project was, 10 things you can do to save rainforests. So this is up on the Tree Foundation's website. If you're looking for a few different ways you can have a quick impact, that's definitely a great resource to check out. I also created a rainforest-friendly purchasing guide. So the next time you're at the grocery store and you're wondering, okay, which product should I buy in order to support rainforests? Which products are detrimental to rainforests? Excuse me. There's a great guide on the website as well, so I encourage you to check that out. I also created several lists of resources for people who are curious about learning more about forests, rainforests, forest conservation. And I've created a list of NGOs for the Tree Foundation so we can do some more education about NGO research in the future. So I'll start with some basics. Why are rainforests important? Well, as was mentioned already, they're home to 50% of all terrestrial species on Earth, despite being far less than 50% of all the land area on Earth. So they're incredibly biodiverse. They're also massive reservoirs of carbon, which has huge implications for climate change. Deforestation of rainforests and other forests around the world is one of the primary human-caused drivers of climate change. But if we instead reforested, we would be able to pull a lot of carbon out of the air, which would be positive for climate change. They're also incredibly beautiful, and they're the homes and livelihoods of many people around the world. So it's extremely important that we conserve rainforests. So I'll tell you a little bit more about a few of the projects I've worked on briefly. So first of all, what are some things you can do to save forests? Well, a good way to do that is just to start getting involved in your area, conserving trees, planting trees, supporting urban forests. And you can do that by like volunteering at land trusts, for example, is a great way to get started on that. You can also support tree planting organizations or forest conservation organizations around the world. That is another easy way to get started helping rainforests and forests around the world. Your purchasing habits are extremely important for rainforests as well, so I encourage you to check out my guide to rainforest-friendly purchasing, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And then finally, I would just say, share your love of forests. Learn about forests, teach others about forests, teach your kids about forests, go to forests regularly. The biggest thing we need to do is just teach other people, teach people how important forests are. So that's my biggest recommendation for what you can do to save forests. I'll talk a little bit also about my rainforest-friendly purchasing guide. So that's also on the website, on the Tree Foundation website, treefoundation.org, if you want to check it out. A few recommendations: if you can buy local, that's great. If you have access to healthy local food, I would recommend that. Avoiding processed foods is important because a lot of the ingredients that come from rainforests end up in highly processed foods. And of course, you'd never be able to tell where they came from. Eating a plant-based diet is healthy for you, and it's healthy for rainforests as well. Meat is very resource intensive, and a lot of deforestation actually comes from cattle, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And of course, looking for certifications. While they're not perfect, they do tend to be an indicator that a product is more sustainable than the alternatives. So here's a quick list of the worst products for rainforests. By far, beef is the worst product of anything, both because it contributes to climate change and because it's the primary driver of deforestation in the Amazon, for example. It results in far more deforestation than any of the other products on this list. I think even possibly combined. So if you can cut down on beef consumption, that's the biggest way that you can make a difference in regards to your purchasing habits. Palm oil is also a major driver, especially in Southeast Asia, but it's also a very efficient food oil crop. So it's a little bit tough to make a recommendation on palm oil. But if you check out the guide, I've discussed that a little bit further. All the complexities with the palm oil market, it's very confusing, but so I encourage you to check out that guide on the website. So I wanted to talk about a couple of takeaways from this internship, things I learned, etc. First, I learned that rainforests are important. I mean, I knew this before, but I really realized it doing all this research, and especially rainforests are very imperiled. So it's really important that we take action to help rainforests in any way we can. I learned a lot about how deforestation and environmental justice and our food system are all interconnected, and you can't really fix one problem without fixing the other problems. So anything that we can do to help with any of those would be very amazing. And another thing I learned is you can make a difference. It's like everybody has the opportunities to make a difference. It's not just big companies or governments that can do anything. By changing your purchasing habits, for example, or teaching people about forests, you can make a difference too. So I had a lot of fun doing this internship. I learned a ton, greatly improved my research and writing skills. And so I would just like to thank you all for listening, and thank the Tree Foundation and everyone who's helped me out with this internship. If you want to read more about anything that I've talked about or anything else about tree canopies, tree conservation, there's a lot of information on the Tree Foundation's website. So I'd recommend checking them out if you want to know more. So thanks everyone for listening, and I'll turn it over to Meg again.
Thank you, Evan. Amazing and wonderful. And Evan is right. We have posted, I think by today, almost all of his amazing findings. And I think it's probably the most common question that kids ask me whenever I do hundreds of virtual school talks every year, which I do, they always want to know what can they do to help save the rainforest. So now I can direct them to Evan on our website, which is really fantastic. So we have time for Q&A, which is really great. We have some amazing questions that have come in from the audience, and I'm going to field them and turn them over to our expert students. So I think the first question that's really exciting is for Mary Moore. And it says, how does climate change impact herbivory? How does it affect all those bugs and leaves getting eaten? So over to you, Mary.
Okay, so there are a variety of impacts that climate change could have on herbivory. For example, in some areas where rising temperatures and decreased rainfall happen, it makes rainforests more prone to forest fires, in which case the rainforest could catch on fire and that would kill all the insects and animals in the area. On the other hand, some other places that receive more rainfall due to climate change could ultimately result in an overproduction of foliage and leaves with really rapid growth of the trees. That is followed by an overproduction of herbivorous insects because there's so much more food to be eaten, so there's so many more bugs to grow. And then while there's still more shade in the canopy from the increased leaf cover, that prevents new seedlings from receiving sufficient sun to grow. So this would result in so many bugs eating all the leaves and then no new trees being able to grow. So it could really be really devastating if it were to go that far. Basically, our forest could be eaten up. So.
Oh my gosh, Mary, that's so sad. Hey, thank you. And Mary's work points another interesting fact out that is related to another question, and I'll mention it really quickly. And that is this data, a lot of that data was collected in the 1980s by Williams College students in the 1990s and some citizen scientists. And 30 years later, which is now, would be a great time to go back and resurvey some of these species because we would get a real indication of what climate change is doing. So New College or Williams College, if we have any interested parties, we'd love to mount an expedition and Mary and I will lead it because it is true that now all of this baseline data is really very valuable like gold for future opportunities to look at the impacts of climate change. The next question goes back to Evan, and it's kind of twofold, but somebody asks, how can we best connect these actions to college students, to people of your generation? And then someone else said, which are the two favorite things that you think we should all do? So if you want to comment on that, Evan, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. Well, yes. I would say that these two questions are related because one of my favorite things that I researched and that I found out is that we just need to spread the word about forests and spread the word about how important they are to everybody and as many people as we can. Basically need to learn it. So as far as college students, I think that having, like, a lot of people go to, for example, speakers on campus. So having speakers who know things about the rainforest and want to share that is really an amazing opportunity for people to pay attention to something that maybe they don't really think much about or have time to do. So I would say that, yeah, having speakers and using social media, connecting to young people is a great idea as far as getting college students involved in these things. And of course, the more funding we can get for research opportunities, that's great as well, to really connect people directly with the rainforest. And I would say the other thing that I really enjoyed researching and learning about is how our food system is connected to rainforests, because I'm interested in both of those issues, and I didn't realize they're so interconnected. 80% of tropical deforestation is due to agriculture, and most of it's like corporate globalized agriculture. So we end up seeing a lot of products that result in deforestation on our supermarket shelves. So I thought that was, I didn't know that, and I thought that was very important to share with people. So I had a lot of fun creating the consumer guide as well.
And Evan, someone did say, how did you collect all that data? I believe you did incredible research on the web, is that correct?
Yes, it was, there's a lot of information out there about different things. And so it's a lot of just like reading, and then compiling it all into something that is easy to read and that doesn't force people to spend hours and hours on the internet like I did. So that's basically how I did it.
You saved us a lot of work. Hey, well, I have two really fun questions for Eva. One is, a couple people have asked, what are your favorite 2 or 3 canopy walkways? And then someone else, Eva, wants to know, what is the economic impact of having a canopy walkway in somebody's region?
Oh, wow. In terms of my favorite canopy walkways, I've only been to a couple. I had the opportunity to visit the Vins Canopy Walkway in Vermont, which was amazing. I loved getting to see all the unique signage. I haven't been to that many others, so I don't know if I can say a favorite, but in terms of which ones I would love to go to, I really would like to visit the Axe Canopy Walkway in Peru, and also I'd love to visit some of the walkways in Australia. I really would like to see the tingle trees at the Valley of the Giants, so I think I'll add that one. And then in terms of the economic benefit, canopy walkways can be a fantastic way to create sustainable income, and especially in a lot of communities that had previously relied on logging. And a great example that I found in my research was the Fale Lupa walkway in Samoa. And this walkway was built in an area that was threatened by logging for years, and in which the community would get a one-time payment, and then the logs would be taken away and the forest would be logged. And after several years of negotiations between the villagers and the chiefs, they decided to build a canopy walkway, which they found was a way to generate income over the long time instead of logging, which was a one-time income. And it also benefits the villagers in return because it's a boost in ecotourism, and it also teaches people about nature and gets people outdoors.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's amazing how that, again, as Evan said, we have an interaction of economics, of sustainability for villagers who might get employment, of training women and girls, especially in opportunities to make money, and then saving forests, which saves all of our lives, even if we live thousands of miles away. So that's a great summary. Thank you, Eva. So Lilia, I have a couple people saying they love your brochures, so I think you might have to go into business. But also we have someone asking, what was your favorite fact about sloths? And also, what do you think you might do in the future? I think people are wondering if you'll become a sloth artist or you'll become a graphic artist, or maybe we can persuade you to become an environmental scientist. Tell us a little about your plans and your favorite sloth factoid.
Okay, so there were a lot of really cool facts when I was researching sloths, but something I was really fascinated by is the unique ecosystem that lives on sloths' backs. So in between the grooves of coarse fur, blue-green algae lives there and creates an ecosystem where other creatures thrive as well. And sloth moths rely on sloths to live out their lives and even lay eggs in sloth species to perpetuate their kind. And so the endangerment of sloths also endangers this unique ecosystem that relies on sloths. So I would definitely be interested in continuing that research and to better understand the specific niche that sloths fill in the rainforest. As for my future plans, I'd love to keep researching sloths and creating more brochures and educational resources for rainforests and forest canopies. I'm not sure exactly what that will look like, but I found a lot of value in trying to create information that is like easily digestible and accessible to more people to get, like Evan was saying, to get the word out there. And so other people and younger audiences especially can understand what's going on and hopefully encourage more people to take action.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. We have one person who wants to know, how did we determine what canopies should be studied and who decides whether a walkway should be constructed? I won't put any of you on the spot for that one because those answers are probably representative of my 40 years of experience. So I'll go ahead and answer it. But I think it is something that all of the students wrestled with as we had our Zoom discussions every week. We have a new project that we're launching with all the student data called Mission Green for the Tree Foundation, which is actually based on the success of Sylvia Earle, a famous oceanographer's work called Mission Blue, where she's identified all of the hope spots in the ocean to try to save them because they have coral reefs and biodiversity. So at the Tree Foundation, we've developed a project called Mission Green to look at those walkway sites that have no ecotourism, no ability to be saved. And I mentioned a couple earlier, Madagascar, Mozambique, India, some of the really high diversity forests that are very much in danger of being logged. And we're hoping that we can use this student information and apply it to fundraise through governments and grants and private philanthropists to build these walkways, because the people that live there are the best conservation stewards. It's not really possible to live in New York City and say, I own some land in Brazil and it's protected, because if you don't have the local people supporting you, you can't really protect land. But if we can provide an economy to local villages through ecotourism, we can therefore identify the highest biodiversity forests, which we've already done thanks to some of my scientific colleagues like E.O. Wilson at Harvard, who's made a wonderful list in his book called Half Earth, and some of my other insect colleagues who've been sweeping nets all around the world and found the hotspots for canopies. And now that we know those hotspots, we can use Eva's map and find where we should go with them. We can use Lilia to make the brochures so that the locals can be trained in ecotourism. We can use Evan's knowledge in order to help people understand why they should visit important walkway sites. And then we can take Mary down there and do some data collection on all those trillions of insects eating leaves. So basically it all works together that we have a lot of long-term data to show us which forests we should preserve. But now we in the Western world that have the finance and have the consumerism really need to do our part and save some of these forests before it's too late. Evan, we have somebody also wanting to know what's in your future after Williams, similar to Lilia's question.
Cool. Well, that's not entirely determined, but I am really passionate about rainforest conservation and conservation advocacy in general, and environmental advocacy in general. So I'm thinking I want to do something related to environmental education or environmental advocacy, somewhere in that spectrum of things that I could do. Basically, I want to get the word out about environmental issues. I want to inspire people to take action on behalf of the environment. Basically, I want to just spread the word about how great the earth is. So I think something along those lines would probably be what I'm interested in doing as a career.
And Evan, someone else just piped in a question. Why soy? Why is soy impacting the rainforest? So that's a good question to answer.
That's an excellent question. So most deforestation due to soy happens in Brazil, and or a lot of it anyways. A lot of the tropical deforestation due to soy happens in Brazil. And soy is mostly used to feed animals. So that would be like beef and chicken and things like that. So most of the soy production is not going into things like tofu. It's going into animal feed. So somewhat ironically, if you want to cut down on your soy consumption, a great way to do that is to switch from beef to tofu as a protein source. Even though tofu is made of soy, there's a whole lot of soy in the beef that you don't even see. And that soy is grown oftentimes in formerly deforested lands in the Amazon. So that's the impact of beef. Corn is another big one. The reason why corn's on the list is also because it's a major animal feed. So that's why the plant-based diet tip is on there, because so much resource use, so much land is used to feed beef and to feed other kinds of animals. So if you can cut down on your meat consumption, you're going to have a huge environmental impact. So that's soy. I could talk all day about all the different, deforestation drivers. So thank you for the question.
Okay. Hey, and Mary, I've got two for you. So one is related, I guess, to your future. Will you be able to take this research back to USC and maybe use it in any part of your major or your future research at college, do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely plan on bringing this back to USC. First plan on developing this project further while I'm moved back there in the fall. So that means continue to look through the data, write a manuscript on the results, things like that. And I also hope to bring the Tree Foundation and their influence and their outreach and everything to USC to hopefully involve USC students or faculty with what the Tree Foundation is doing, and possibly we can come up with projects for students at USC to do, and tell USC students how they can better live their life to impact our forests better, and what products they could buy, things like that. So.
Okay, fantastic. And also, what keeps the leaves from getting 100% eaten?
So there's a variety of factors that play into that. For example, there are certain insects that after eating a leaf, they'll expel a certain chemical back onto the leaf that can aid in regrowth of the leaf tissue, so that leaf will then grow faster afterwards. There are also a lot of plants who they'll, similarly to when you get a cut, they'll kind of sense the tissue loss, and then they'll heal and grow faster for a variety of time until they are more so healed. And then lastly, there are also a number of plant defenses, whether that's physical defenses like wax on the leaves or leaf toughness, or chemical defenses like certain oils and toxins and things that leaves can secrete. So that will make insects less likely and less wanting to eat the leaves. So yeah.
Cool. Hey, thanks. Okay. Eva, this might be, you have to look at your database, but let's test your memory. Someone wants to know, what is the most visited canopy walkway in the world?
Let me just look at the
It's
database.
like a trivia
real
question.
quickly.
We'll pretend it's a game show.
Let's see. In terms of visitors, the Mayaka River Canopy Walkway has 500,000 visitors annually.
So maybe that's an interesting thought, isn't it? How to,
Yeah.
and it might have a lot to do with where tourists go, but we need to study that probably and figure out, in the future, we want people to come to Forest to learn about them. So I'll let you, make sure you put a blog post in the Tree Foundation website to tell us about the most popular canopies.
Oh, and then I think I have that one beat though. I have that the Tahoon Forest Airwalk in Australia, in Tasmania actually, in 2019 had 100,000 visitors. Oh wait, but then the Valley of the Giants had 140,000 visitors also in Australia.
So for those remote
I
countries.
think that's, yeah.
That is so cool. Well, that's a fun little trivia question. I love it. Okay, so here's a hard question. It says for all of you, and any of you can decide and just tell me what you think. What does environmental justice mean to you as a student? Anybody want to have a go at that? I can see Evan's about to talk.
Well, I could guess. I could take a shot at that one. So I think environmental justice is providing for the needs of all people on Earth, while at the same time leaving enough of our natural ecosystems intact that all the other species on Earth can coexist. So I think that should be, in my opinion, the goal of environmental justice, and that's of course tied into social justice, and that's tied into conservation, and it's tied into our food system, and everything's connected, right? But that's what I would say, in my opinion, what people mean, or at least what I think about when I think about environmental justice.
Anyone else want to wager a thought or two? Silence in the ranks. Eva, you probably have a little opinion based upon what these walkways will do for some of the women and families in the districts.
Yeah, I think that's also, I think environmental justice in that way also kind of translates over into social justice and making sure that these communities can be self-sustainable and not rely on logging practices, and also giving women jobs and promoting like women in science too. I think it all relates somehow, like Evan said.
Right. Well, that's great. Those are really wonderful things to discuss at your next college get together, wherever and whatever. And that leads me to this one, perhaps final question, which is a really good one. Coming, I might add, from one of my classmates who really loves sloths. She asked, what challenges confronted you for your internship during a pandemic? And wasn't virtual internship beneficial? So maybe we'll run through all of you. We'll start with Mary and just think about how you want to answer that sort of two-pronged question.
Okay, so I wasn't really sure what I was going to do this summer, but I was very excited to get the opportunity to work with the Tree Foundation virtually. I thought it was very impactful in the way that I could do my work and still see it presented to people, and still see like my work and my results published in the internet, a place where a lot of people can see and view at any time. I thought it was challenging because it was less hands-on. I wasn't, able to go to a rainforest and measure the leaves, which would have been really exciting, but I was able to see all of the information and decide what to do with it. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the experience, and I'm so happy that I was able to do this summer.
Thanks. Hey, Lilia, what challenges did you find virtually?
There were definitely some challenges. Well, just the fact that I hadn't actually been to the walkways that I was trying to like create resources for and promote just made me rely on other people's firsthand experiences more, but it was also a great opportunity for me to connect with people that I might not have otherwise spoken to via Zoom or phone calls. And so in that way, it was really nice to be able to make all those connections, even though it was through a screen, and just meet new people and like get other people's input in my projects.
Cool. Eva, you probably had a lot of fun interviewing everyone virtually. You couldn't have traveled the world anyway, but
Yeah.
was there a problem for you in doing that?
Well, I mean, besides the navigating time zones, I had some really, really late night interviews in Australia. But I mean, like I don't think I would have been able to go to Australia anyway. I think one of the hardest parts of the online internship is so much screen time, but that does bring me to a benefit in which, since I was able to stay home, I was able to see my family a lot more and like go on hikes with my family and go on like short camping trips and things like that I wouldn't have been able to do if I were somewhere else. And then I think one of the biggest challenges I faced was a lot of technology issues, particularly with the new Esri software, which I think it turned out great working with, and it really worked out in the end with my virtual map, but it took a while to figure out how to use it.
Well, you did a great job. And Evan, you did all web research too, so maybe virtual was better or worse?
Yeah, well, certainly I agree with Eva that, the screen time, eventually you're like, oh my gosh, can I stare at a computer anymore? But I would say overall, like I had a really great time with this internship. I guess another thing I could say is I'm in beautiful Vermont right now, and I'm also working on a homestead part-time, so that did limit my hours as far as how much I could do a little bit. But I would say I was very lucky in that I got to spend time in an actual forest, on some days, and then some days I'd spend time on my computer while looking at a forest on my window. So, I would say overall, I had a great time with this internship, and there were a few challenges with everything going on, but I would say that overall I had a great time.
Fantastic. Hey, so two more questions. I think they're in my court, but one person said, what's just better, keeping old trees and conserving them or planting new trees? And the answer without a doubt is save old trees. They store more carbon, they hold more species, they stabilize the soil, they cleanse the water. And the minute you clear a forest and say, oh, guess what, we're just going to plant new ones, you've got to wait thousands of years to recreate a rainforest. So for that question, there is absolutely no doubt, save old trees is a total important rule of thumb for anybody interested in conservation and the next generation's health and success. And the last question that just popped up, which I kind of love, and I've only seen it about 1,000 times in the last 2 years, what can we do to improve the Williams College Canopy Walkway? Talk to me, whoever you are. I love that. There's so many things we could do. I've had people ask me, couldn't we turn it into something a little more friendly and have all of those underserved school kids in Northwestern Massachusetts learn about forests? Could be a fantastic student research arena to both design it and build it and create brochures and do all sorts of things. So there's a huge opportunity there for Williams College if somebody knows the right people to approach. And I sure hope that you might think about that, because I will definitely come and help you design it. On that note, I think it's probably time to thank everybody. We are so grateful to Williams, to Ashley and Kate and the tech team that helped us organize this, to the technology people at our end, which is MC and David and some others that really helped the Tree Foundation with this. Anybody who wants to know more about what these students are going to continue to do, we promise we will keep you updated. You can just go on the Tree Foundation website and sign up for our newsletter, and we'll keep you informed about places where we might be building walkways with Mission Green, where Lilia's brochures are being distributed, how Mary's data set came out and where she's publishing it, and what Eva's gonna do with all of the new canopy walkways that have to go up on her map, and how Evan's going to probably double the visitorship to our website. We already have 3 million or more hits a year, but I think now that we're going to be listing what to do to save a rainforest, we'll get a whole lot, hopefully more youth and college students being part of that. So on that note, a big shout out again to the class of 1976, my classmates who've kind of re-inspired me to think harder about communicating rainforest conservation, and President Deb Heineman, who made this connectivity for our wonderful webinar. And thank you, Williams and USC, for bringing interns and giving them opportunities during the time of the pandemic. As their supervisor, I have to say that A, these guys were brilliant, and B, a virtual internship was so much more successful than I ever dreamed last May. We have such amazing product and output and things to think about. So go and save some rainforests, all of you listeners, and thanks again for joining us. Bye-bye.